Hey everyone, this is Six Path Weeb, and today we're diving into a fun hypothetical. What if Naruko had a Bankai and clones? Think unstoppable power, insane strategies, and total chaos. Just a quick disclaimer before we jump in, all content here is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I don't own any of the anime footage used, full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's get started. A small girl crawled under a bridge and hugged her knees. Silent tears ran down her cheeks as she heard people walking above. They were the reason she had hidden herself, trembling with fear. She was only 8, who had ever imagined an 8-year-old running from her troubles? It felt impossible. She felt overwhelmed by her life, unsure of her place in the world, wishing she could be helpful to someone, anyone. She sniffled softly, then froze as she heard footsteps stop suddenly on the bridge. She's under the bridge. Naruko, finding it pointless to keep hiding, leapt out and ran. Her heart pounded in her chest. She stumbled over her untied shoelaces, time seeming to slow as she glanced back. People were coming, their expressions harsh and unkind. She closed her eyes, bracing herself. But instead of hitting the ground, Naruko felt herself lifted into the air. Opening her eyes, she realized she was being carried swiftly among the trees by someone in a mysterious uniform. She said nothing, letting the figure take her where they intended. At this point, she hardly cared. Minutes later, exhaustion took over, and Naruko fell asleep, though a faint, soft chuckle echoed in her ears. When she awoke, a chill ran down her spine. She was in a strange, abandoned laboratory. Her wrists and ankles were gently restrained, and her eyes widened at the peculiar surroundings. Odd instruments and floating glass containers lined the shelves, casting strange reflections in the dim light. A deep voice called softly, "Calm yourself, child." Naruko tensed but stayed still, staring as the figure approached. The mask was removed, revealing a pair of watchful, piercing eyes and a long, serene expression. Who are you?" Naruko asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not about me. What matters is what will happen next," the figure replied calmly, brushing aside strands of dark hair. A soft glow emanated from their hands, and Naruko felt herself drifting into a light, peaceful sleep. "Sleep well, young one. When you awaken, things will be very different," were the last words she heard before her vision faded. A month later. Naruko ran through the village, her energy and determination unmatched. People hurried out of her way, startled but unharmed. Her abilities had grown tremendously, obstacles that once seemed impossible were now mere challenges she could navigate. She paused, observing her surroundings, focusing on controlling her new powers. With careful precision, she disarmed a training dummy with a single motion, amazed at her own growth. Her red eyes shimmered with focus, the world around her alive with possibilities. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared, an elderly man in white and red robes, accompanied by other skilled figures. Naruko remained alert but did not attack. Instead, she demonstrated her abilities with grace, carefully avoiding harm while showcasing her strength. "We need to work together," the old man said gently. "Your talents are incredible, Naruko, but we must ensure everyone is safe." Naruko nodded slowly, beginning to understand that her power could be used for protection rather than chaos. She practiced restraint and skill, learning to channel her energy constructively. The laboratory incident, the fear, and the confusion had shaped her, but now, guided by the elders, Naruko had the chance to grow into her potential, a guardian for those around her, strong yet compassionate. Though the past had been frightening, she realized she had the power to rewrite her story, to transform fear into courage, and to turn isolation into connection. Naruko looked at the sunset, feeling hope for the first time in months. Her journey was only beginning, and for the first time, she felt ready. "We need to go now, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen nodded and rose, walking toward his office with Kakashi and Naruko. He knew that some villagers might have witnessed the incident with the Jinchuriki, but hopefully only rumors would spread, leaving Naruko's memory to be quietly remembered. Naruko slowly regained consciousness, letting out a big yawn. She sat up on the hard ground and instinctively scratched her back, but froze when she heard the faint jingling of chains. Looking down, she noticed a long chain attached to her chest. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Ah!" she exclaimed, startled. She also realized her body appeared slightly transparent. Her familiar white shirt and orange pants were now torn and worn. "What is happening?" she called out, her voice echoing into the busy streets. Around her, villagers carried on with their daily tasks under the warm sun, yet nobody seemed to notice her. Normally, people would at least glance or react when she passed, but now, she felt invisible. "Hey, she shouted, trying to gain attention, but her voice went unheard. When she stepped directly in front of a passerby, they walked right through her. Her wide eyes reflected shock as she slowly began to understand. It seemed she was no longer part of the physical world. Falling to her knees, Naruko's mind raced. She barely remembered the last events before this strange transformation. The details were fuzzy. A gentle sadness washed over her as she realized that some opportunities, becoming Hokage, becoming the best ninja, even understanding her feelings for Sakura, might now remain forever out of reach. She looked at a nearby clock on a store and noticed it was just past noon. Determined, Naruko wiped away a few tears and leapt to her feet. Perhaps she could still reach the academy during lunch break and see Sakura once more. "I'm coming, Sakura-chan," she called, gliding through the crowd with ease. Though her body felt different, the sensation of moving through others made her giggle softly. Finally, Naruko reached the back of the academy, where she knew Sakura would be talking with Ino. She slowed her pace as she approached, smiling at the familiar sight of pink hair. "I can't believe she's gone," Ino said quietly, and Naruko's heart clenched. "I didn't know her very well. Or at all, but still," Ino continued. "Yeah, she could be difficult sometimes, but just leaving? That's unexpected," Sakura added, nodding in agreement. Naruko felt tears sting her eyes, knowing Sakura truly cared. Sakura's next words hit her like a gentle wave. "I suppose. It might be a relief for everyone now." Ino blinked in surprise. "Sakura, that's a bit harsh." "I know," Sakura murmured, looking down, "but it's honest." Naruko's fists clenched lightly as silent tears fell. Her heart ached, not from anger, but from the pain of being misunderstood. She wanted to tell Sakura that she had always cared, that she had been more than just an inconvenience. But she could not. A soft feeling of being watched made her pause. Turning slowly, she noticed a girl standing a short distance behind her. The girl had long black hair in a single braid and wore a short black kimono with a white underlayer. Her outfit was accented with a wide white obi tied with a red cord, a dark red choker around her neck, and white gloves covering her hands and wrists. On her left sleeve was an armband marked Lieutenant. Her emerald eyes seemed to pierce through the invisible Naruko. "Naruko Uzumaki, correct?" the girl asked calmly. Naruko blinked and pointed to herself. "Me?" she stammered. "You are Naruko Uzumaki, yes?" the girl inquired again, tilting her head slightly. Naruko shrugged. "Well, I am Naruko Uzumaki, yes," she admitted. The girl gave a small nod. "I am Nemu Kurotsuchi, Lieutenant of the 12th Division and Vice President of the Seoul Research and Development Institute." Naruko blinked in surprise. "Seoul Society?" "Yes," Nemu replied, her tone calm but firm. Naruko's mind raced, but she shook her head. "I don't believe you. Just leave me alone," she said firmly, attempting to walk away. Nemu followed silently, maintaining a respectful distance. Naruko glanced over her shoulder, frustration bubbling within her. She didn't have time to worry about mysterious strangers, she had far more pressing matters as a wandering spirit. "Excuse me," Nemu said softly, but Naruko ignored her, picking up her pace and slipping down a quiet alleyway, determined to regain some control over her strange new reality. Nemu saw her enter the alleyway, and when she looked around, Naruko was nowhere in sight. Squinting against the dim light, Nemu cautiously stepped into the alley, scanning around the edges of the large dumpster. She lifted the lid to see if Naruko had hidden there, but it was empty, not even a bag. After a few minutes of searching, Nemu stepped out and continued down the street. A soft chuckle echoed from beneath the dumpster, and Naruko emerged with a mischievous smile. "I still got it," she said, moving in the opposite direction of Nemu. Suddenly, she turned and froze as Nemu appeared before her, her expression expectant. Naruko glanced behind her, then back at Nemu. "How did you do that?" Naruko asked, astonished. "That's not important, Naruko Uzumaki. Please, I need to take you to the Seoul Society," Nemu replied firmly. Naruko considered it for a moment and then nodded. "Fine, but can I take one last look around here?" she asked. Nemu agreed, and Naruko waved a hand with a smile. "Thanks." Naruko had wandered through Konoha for what felt like hours. She didn't have a particular destination in mind, her thoughts were consuming her entirely. At one point, she paused near the Hokage's office and noticed Hiruzen engrossed in paperwork. She could sense a quiet sadness in him, and Naruko felt a subtle warmth knowing someone cared about her in life. With a silent farewell, she continued along the streets, observing everything for the last time. As she walked, Naruko realized she could see things more clearly. Even fast-moving details seemed slower, easier to notice. It filled her with a quiet excitement, a strange perk of her current state. However, she sensed a presence following her, not like Nemu, who had given her space, but something that made her uneasy. The unsettling aura dissipated, and Naruko decided she would investigate it later. Her steps eventually led her to a serene garden. It was a breathtaking place, filled with lush plants, flowers, and towering trees. A calm pond mirrored the sky, and beyond it, a spacious home sat quietly. Naruko approached the pond, watching koi fish glide gracefully through the water, lost in a tranquil moment. Across the pond, Hinata wiped away tears, her face streaked from crying. She had heard a rumor about Naruko's disappearance and had been losing hope. Seeking comfort, she had retreated to her family's garden, a place that had always calmed her. Sitting on a smooth boulder by the water, she let her emotions flow freely, admiring the delicate movements of the koi. Naruko noticed the ripples and turned to see Hinata quietly weeping. She felt a pang of concern. Hinata had always been kind, thoughtful, and gentle, even to someone as misunderstood as Naruko. Seeing her in tears felt wrong, and Naruko quietly approached, unsure of how to comfort her. "Why? Hinata?" Naruko whispered, moved by her friend's sorrow. Hinata sniffled and held herself close, feeling a sudden chill. "So you don't know?" Naruko asked, her eyes widening. I'm Hikari Hyuga. Hinata's mother," the woman replied softly. Naruko realized Hikari, too, appeared transparent, a gentle presence in the garden.
I didn't know," Naruko admitted, feeling a mixture of surprise and empathy.
Hikari smiled gently, her voice like a soft melody. "It's all right. No one outside the family really knew." She glanced at Hinata, who had stopped crying, and then back at Naruko. "You know," Naruko said quietly, "Hinata is one of the kindest people I've ever met. She treated me with so much care. I wish I could have shown her more." Hikari's eyes reflected sympathy, and she nodded understandingly. Curiosity sparked in Naruko. "Who exactly are you? You remind me of someone important." "I am Hikari Hyuga," she replied, her voice calm and musical. "And I approve of your kind heart." Naruko tilted her head in confusion. "You'll understand soon enough," Hikari said with a gentle laugh. After a pause, Naruko asked, "Can you tell me more about Hinata?" Hikari smiled warmly. "Of course. She has faced many challenges, yet she always sees the good in others. Even when life was difficult, her heart remained pure. She has a special ability. Not of magic or fighting, but of seeing light in the darkest of places." Naruko's eyes shone with admiration. "That's incredible. She truly is remarkable." "Yes," Hikari agreed. "And she cared deeply for you. Your absence affected her more than anyone could know." Naruko nodded quietly, letting the gentle hum of the garden and the warmth of Hikari's presence fill her with peace. "I suppose so, but it wasn't as challenging as yours," Hikari said, nodding in agreement. "Seems like we're both pretty important to her, huh?" Naruko asked, and Hikari nodded again. "I wonder why," Naruko mused to herself, and Hikari smiled quietly. "It's not hard to see why you are," Hikari remarked, and Naruko looked at her curiously. "Is it not?" she asked. Hikari shook her head. "You're full of energy and have a positive outlook on life. You don't let setbacks hold you down for long. You stand up for what you believe in and care for those who need support. You're polite, compassionate, and you listen to your heart. In my opinion, these are the qualities of an exceptional person." Naruko blushed and looked away. "How do you know so much about me?" Naruko asked. "Let's just say a little birdie shared some insights," Hikari said with a laugh. Naruko gave her a puzzled glance, and Hikari smiled warmly. "It's okay, someday you'll understand what I mean." Naruko nodded, hesitated briefly, and then stood.
I think I should go now."
"Someone is looking for me," she said. Hikari bowed politely, her smile unwavering. "Then I bid you a fond farewell, Naruko, and I hope our paths cross again someday," Hikari said. Naruko returned the bow. "Thank you." "Likewise," she replied happily before walking out of the compound. After a few steps, she glanced back through one of the windows and saw Hinata gazing at the sky. Naruko looked up and noticed it was now night. Time certainly seemed to fly. She turned back to Hinata, taking in for the first time just how radiant she looked. Then she began to wander again for a few minutes until Nemu called out, "Are you ready to go?" Naruko shook her head and looked toward Hinata's room with a small smile. "I have one more thing to do. Would you mind?" she asked. "Please hurry," Nemu replied, and Naruko nodded enthusiastically. Hinata lay on her bed, facing the wall, trying to rest despite the sadness lingering in her heart. She moved around her room, kept herself occupied by reading some books her mother had left her, and even attempted some light exercises, but nothing seemed to help. Eventually, she gave up, pulling the covers over her head, hoping that sleep would transport her to a happier place in her dreams. Tonight, she prayed for a better dream than the one she had the previous night. Suddenly, Naruko quietly entered the room. She landed lightly on her feet and was glad Hinata had opened the window. From her spot, Naruko observed Hinata as she adjusted herself in bed. Checking the time on the nightstand, she saw it was just past midnight. She had noticed Hinata doing exercises earlier and was still struck by her unique personality, different, yet delightful. Waiting for the right moment, Naruko approached the edge of the bed and sat down on a nearby stool, clearing her throat thoughtfully. Though she didn't have to speak, she felt compelled to. "Hello, Hinata," Naruko said softly. Unbeknownst to her, Hinata's eyes widened in surprise. She froze, unsure if she had really heard Naruko's voice. "I'm not sure what to say," Naruko continued with a small laugh. "I remember my first impression of you. I thought you were a quiet, reserved, and unusual girl. Now I see that you're shy, yes, but also kind and thoughtful. Your uniqueness is something to be admired, I really like it." Hinata's heart raced as she slowly realized Naruko was truly in the room. "I also learned a lot today, and I want to apologize," Naruko said gently. "I'm sorry I didn't make an effort to get to know you sooner. I was too focused on my own thoughts and didn't notice how remarkable you are. Perhaps we could have been friends earlier." Naruko smiled warmly. "I even spoke with your mother. She's wonderful. I understand why losing her affected you deeply. She also shared so much about you, about your kindness, your little quirks, and the joy you bring to others." Naruko paused, reflecting. "Sometimes life isn't fair," she murmured softly, remembering the hardships Hinata faced. She looked up, surprised to see Hinata sitting upright, meeting her gaze. "You can see me?" Naruko asked, and Hinata nodded. "I can hear you too," she replied quietly. Naruko returned her gaze, observing the sincerity in her eyes. There was a moment of quiet between them before Naruko asked, "How have you been?" Hinata hesitated, then sighed. "The same. Except for your absence," she said softly. "I see," Naruko replied gently. "Why is that? Why? Why do you care so much about me, even though we weren't close before?" Hinata asked, looking down shyly. "Because," Hinata continued, pressing her fingertips together, "you are kind and someone I admire." Naruko nodded, smiling. "That's wonderful," she said, her own smile lighting up her face. Hinata looked at her, confused but heartened, and slowly began to gather the courage to speak again. "And Naruko," she heard him hum, letting her know he was listening. "Did you really mean what you said earlier? About being sorry that I didn't get a chance to truly know you?" she asked, and Naruko's cheerful smile faded into a thoughtful expression. "Yes, I did," she replied softly. Biting her lower lip slightly, Hinata found the courage to ask further. "And you said you talked to my mom?" Naruko nodded gently. Hinata looked at her, noticing tears brimming in her eyes. "I miss her," Hinata whispered. Naruko was taken aback by the calm certainty in her voice, and the surprise deepened when Hinata suddenly embraced her, burying her face in Naruko's shoulder. "I miss her so much." Hinata's quiet voice trembled against her. Naruko felt the warmth of her presence, realizing she could both see and feel her, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink around them. "It's okay, Hinata," Naruko murmured, gently patting her back. Not accustomed to this kind of closeness, she felt Hinata's embrace strengthen, and it was clear how much she needed comfort. Slowly, Naruko returned the hug, her own calm grounding Hinata. "It'll be okay, Hinata. Everything will be all right," she whispered, and Hinata's small body trembled slightly. For the first time since her mother had passed, Hinata felt a sense of security. After a few moments, she pulled back and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I'm sorry," Hinata murmured. Naruko smiled warmly. "It's always okay to let your feelings out once in a while." Hinata gazed at her with admiration, her heartbeat almost audible in the quiet room. She smiled and hugged Naruko again, though this time for a shorter moment. "I'm sorry, Hinata, but I should be going now," Naruko said gently, and sadness clouded Hinata's lavender eyes. "Why you can't go?" Hinata exclaimed, surprising her. "I can't?" Naruko asked softly. "I need you," Hinata added firmly. Naruko opened her mouth to reply, but Hinata interrupted, "Don't say sorry." "So? What would you like me to say?" Naruko asked, curious. "Say you'll stay. That you'll be my friend," Hinata said, hugging her tightly again. "Anything but being sorry." She took a deep breath and added, "I don't want to lose someone who means a lot to me." Naruko sighed, touched by Hinata's sincerity. "I'm sorry," she admitted gently, causing Hinata to cling even more. "Please don't go," Hinata whispered. Naruko held her quietly, torn between her own responsibilities and the desire to remain close to her friend. Finally, she spoke softly, "Hinata. I have to leave for now. But I promise, I'll come back." "You really will?" Hinata asked, uncertain. Naruko smiled confidently, giving a reassuring nod. "Believe it." Hinata's face lit up with relief, and she hugged her once more, feeling a sense of hope and trust she hadn't felt in a long time. After a few quiet moments, Naruko finally stepped back. "I'll see you later, Hinata-chan," she said, flashing her brightest smile before carefully exiting the room. Landed safely, Naruko approached Nemu and nodded. "I'm good," she remarked, noticing a butterfly as dark as midnight resting on Nemu's shoulder. "Indeed," Nemu replied calmly. Suddenly, a sliding door appeared out of thin air. "Whoa!" Naruko exclaimed, eyes wide as she cautiously approached. The door opened, and she stepped into the light, her silhouette gradually blending with the brightness beyond. Inside, Naruko found herself in a spacious, pristine office, far larger than any room she had seen before. A large door stood to her right, and the room's immaculate design hinted at a highly organized environment. Clearing her throat, Naruko looked up and saw an elderly man with a long, white-plaited beard seated in a chair. He had a calm, serene presence, and his gaze fixed on her with quiet intensity. Beside him stood an assistant, dressed formally, with a sword secured to her waist. "Naruko Namikaze Uzumaki, I presume?" the elderly man inquired. Naruko shifted slightly under his focused gaze. "Kind of. Who are you?" she asked politely. The assistant scowled briefly at her tone, but the elder remained composed. "Such confidence," he murmured, his voice carrying a subtle weight of authority. There, Sasaki, she is only a child," the old man said, and Naruko tilted her head thoughtfully. "Naruko Namikaze Uzumaki, from now on, you will address me as Captain Commander Yamamoto. Anything less will be considered insubordination. Do you understand?" Naruko looked at Yamamoto with a mixture of seriousness and curiosity. "Of course, Captain Commander Yamamoto." "Ma'am," she said playfully, giving a hand salute and a mischievous grin. She noticed the inscrutable expression on Yamamoto's face and silently hoped she hadn't overstepped. "I see you arrived here in one piece," Yamamoto remarked. "I suppose so," Naruko replied with a small chuckle, rubbing the back of her head. A sudden thought struck her. "Now that I think about it, why am I really here?" Yamamoto walked back to his chair, his presence commanding. "You, Naruko, are extraordinary. You have endured hardships most cannot imagine at such a young age, and you have returned from experiences few can comprehend." Naruko's eyes grew distant at the reminder. "Furthermore, you carry within you the essence of a powerful spiritual being. It is now integrated into your very soul." "What?" Naruko exclaimed, but her voice was silenced when Yamamoto tapped his cane decisively on the floor. Once assured she would listen, he continued. "As I was explaining, your spirit has merged with the Kyubi thanks to the interventions of one named Orochimaru. She altered the seal and conducted experiments on you, which is why you now possess the fox's eye." Naruko's eyes widened in astonishment.
I truly do?"
she asked, and Yamamoto nodded. "That would explain why everything feels so much clearer," Naruko murmured to herself. "Even while you were in your previous world, your spiritual energy was immense, not unlike some of the captains here in the Soul Society," Yamamoto said. Naruko considered this carefully. Being compared to a captain was remarkable, though she restrained herself from asking more questions and instead focused on the question that had been on her mind since arriving in this unfamiliar world. "So, you want me to become a Shinigami?" Naruko asked, a mix of skepticism and excitement in her voice. Yamamoto nodded solemnly. "That sounds incredible," she exclaimed. Yamamoto nodded in acknowledgement. "In essence, yes. However, you must first train at the Spiritual Arts Academy to master the fundamentals of being a Shinigami," he explained. Naruko's face brightened, and she gave another confident salute. "You can count on me, Captain Commander Yamamoto." "Oh, and..." She hesitated, a trace of uncertainty in her voice. What is it, child? Yamamoto asked, his gaze attentive. May I occasionally visit my previous world? Perhaps once a month? Naruko asked softly. Yamamoto studied her curiously. Why do you wish this? He asked. Naruko looked down, her voice quiet. I promised a friend I would see her again someday, she replied. Yamamoto nodded thoughtfully. You shall have that opportunity once you have proven yourself as a full Shinigami. When the time is right, you may return to your world, he said. Naruko's eyes sparkled with anticipation, and she bowed deeply. Now that is settled, Nemu, please show Naruko to her quarters, Yamamoto instructed. Nemu nodded and gently guided Naruko toward the door. Before stepping through, Naruko glanced back. Thank you, Captain Commander Yamamoto, she said sincerely, bowing once more before continuing toward her new life as a Shinigami. Captain, I respect your decision, but why allow her to return home once she becomes a Shinigami? Sasaki asked, his curiosity evident. Yamamoto leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. I see immense potential in her. She carries the same determination, the same spirit that her father once had. She will become an invaluable asset to us and help guide the Soul Society into a brighter future, Yamamoto replied, leaving Sasaki to accept that no further explanation would be given. The captain's confidence in her was unwavering. That wraps up this part. Keep watching, what's next will be worth your attention. Thank you. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.